Geneva friends, I am so excited to be with you today. Many of you I know, many of you I do not yet know. I'm Dr. Wargo, and I teach in the education department. So a little backstory. 49 years ago, I was adopted by my parents, Bob and Sandra Agnew. And it was a closed adoption, so one of the only things I knew about my birth mother was that she had delivered me all by herself in her college dorm room, which means she was the same age as many of you here in this room. And it just so happens it was 1973, and some of you may know that that's the year abortion was made legal. So fast forward to about 6 years ago, I had some health concerns that compelled me to begin the process of opening these sealed adoption records. I needed to get my medical history, and I also wanted to thank my birth mother. So to do this, I had to work with a social worker through the orphanage that I was adopted through. Okay, now pause with me. Have you ever experienced a moment where you knew your life was probably not ever going to be the same? And isn't it crazy that sometimes those life-altering moments don't involve many words? Your dad and I are getting divorced. 7 words. There's been an accident. 4 words. Athletes, you're out for the season. 5 words. I cheated on you. 4 words. I'm pregnant. 2 words. Can any of you relate? Well, for me, my world shifted with 5 little words that the social worker said. You were conceived in rape. I couldn't process what I had just heard, and I couldn't imagine the pain that had been endured by a 19-year-old woman so many years ago. Okay, so I have known Jesus a long time. I was raised in a Christian home. David, my husband, and I have raised our own children in a Christian home. But this news rocked my safe, happy little bubble. So instantly, these ugly, horrible thoughts came with a vengeance. I was unworthy. I didn't deserve to live. My conception had caused great suffering. Words like shame, trauma, ugliness, isolation, devastation began to camp out in my thoughts. I wondered if I looked like or had mannerisms like a rapist. I felt dirty because I had his blood running through my veins, and I felt uncomfortable in my own skin. Nobody dreamed me up. Nobody had wanted me to exist. Born out of violence was on repeat in my mind. And even though I was a believer, I began to allow that thought to take root and grow. So clearly, I had made a fatal spiritual flaw, hadn't I? I had allowed my attention to be divided between the truth of who God says that I am and those damning words in the echo chamber of my mind. So I began to have this overwhelming, compulsive need to make my life count. I tried to be perfect in all of the things that I did. I needed to prove that the sacrifice my birth mother made all those years ago wasn't in vain. I needed to prove that my life had value in the midst of a society that screams at me that as a product of rape, I have no value. I was trying to redeem the unredeemable in my own power. So, God waited patiently for me to come to the end of myself. He waited for me to stop splitting my attention between his truth and those lies that I was choosing to buy into. And I'm going to be honest, it's a long process. Over the last 6 years, God has shown me that it doesn't matter that nobody here on earth dreamed me up, because he dreamed me up. My conception was not a surprise to God. He knew my days before I was formed. He knew the number of hairs on my head. He ordered my days. He intricately knit me together in the womb. He knew my name. I didn't need to make my life count because God had already said it did. All of these things are true for me today. And maybe you need to be reminded today that they're true for you too. The creator of the universe saw fit to have me here and to have each of you here today too. So I began to understand over these last 6 years that God had redeemed the horrifying sin of rape by giving me a birth mother who loved Jesus enough to choose life for me. God redeemed the heartache of parents who couldn't have their own biological children by giving them children through the gift of adoption. And God ultimately redeemed my own heart and mind by lovingly reminding me that he can turn any decision that you've made or that I've made, any ashes, any devastation, any life-altering news, that you or I might receive into something beautiful. So my mom is not here with us today. She went to be with Jesus earlier this year, but my dad is here. My husband is here. My daughter-in-law is here with my grandchildren. My kids are watching online from work. And my birth mother, who's currently on an airplane with her husband on their way here for our daughter's wedding this weekend, and whom we've had the joy of getting to know over the last 6 years. If a different choice had been made 49 years ago, our family photos, as they are, would not exist. So I know some of you, and maybe most of you, have those lies bouncing around in your head, whatever is unique to your situation, and you're choosing to listen to them. No matter what those lies are from your past or your present, the truth is that you and I, and you can't see my shirt, but I'm wearing one that says created for a purpose, that we were created for a purpose that a loving God intentionally set in motion long before any of us were conceived. So when you face those life-altering moments, run to Jesus, dive into the Bible, listen to music that's edifying, find a healthy home church, tape Bible verses on your mirror in the bathroom, speak words of life to each other. Share your own personal testimonies about struggle and God's redemption. Fill yourself with God's truth. And in closing, Psalm 18:19 reminds me that God brought me to a spacious place, a place of freedom. He rescued me because he delights in me. And friends, he delights in every single one of you too. Thank you.